The Poet X, written by Elizabeth Esvito and reported by yours truly, Lillian Luke. Okay, so there's the beautiful cover, and the quick summary is a girl who lives in Harlem expresses herself to the reader in poetic form. She discusses everything from interactions with her family to her inner thoughts, and it also deals with issues of being a minority and a woman. Okay, so the main character and the person who tells the story is Xiomara Batista, and the side characters who add to the story are Xavier Batista, Xiomara's twin, and she only refers to him as twin throughout the novel. There's Amon, her love interest, Caridad, her best friend, Miss Galliano, her English teacher that helps her in every aspect from poetry to life, and there's Father Sean, who gives her spiritual advice, and finally, Mommy and Poppy, her parents, who contribute greatly to the pressure she feels. So, the themes for this novel is number one, being part of a family may not always be easy, but they will never give up on you. Number two, expression takes on many forms. And number three, it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help. Okay, again, the first theme we're going to speak about is being part of a family may not always be easy, but they will never give up on you. As Vito portrayed through the story, that Xiomara and her family have a very rocky relationship where they struggle to compromise or agree. Her dad, though present in person, is absent in participation. Her brother is very quiet and attends a different school. Xiomara's mother is the worst one, as she's the hardest on Xiomara, especially when it comes to her faith and expectations. Towards the end of the book, they begin to actually communicate, and her family finally starts to support her, listen, and give her a voice. This portrays a theme that no family is perfect, but they will never give up on you. Yes, each member contributes to her stress in their own way, but they also help her. Okay, to further elaborate on family stress, let me give some examples. Let's start off with Xiomara's mother. So, her mother forces Christianity on her, making her attend church, communion classes, and threatening to send her on DR trips. Xiomara's mom has a very different parenting method, like slapping, kneeling on rice, verbal abuse, and things of that nature because she's an immigrant. She also pressures Xiomara to become a perfect lady through body shaming and insisting on no boys. And if she interacts with a boy, she's like, that's shameful, you're lusting, etc. So the quote I would use to describe her mother is, Xiomara said, "Her lips are staples that pierce me quick and hard," referring to her mother speaking to her. So she's kind of fearful of her mother in some ways, but at the same time, tying back to the theme, they will not give up on you. So towards the end, where her mother becomes more accepting of her and her love for poetry, she reads a poem to her family, and her mother gives her advice, saying, "Use your hand gestures a little less next time. Speak up, Xiomara." Now her brother is the complete opposite of her, as she's bold and tough and he's frail and timid. Her brother needs her protection and does not stand up for her whenever they're facing troubles, and that makes her very angry. He's also the favorite, gets to skip a grade, and goes to a gifted school because he's very smart and into the sciences. The quote I would use for him is, neither one of us has to say we're disappointed in the other, because her brother gets disappointed in her for always using violence, and she's disappointed in her brother for not being able to stick up for himself. And back to the theme, he shows his love for her in always giving her apples because that's her favorite food. He's very observant, so whenever she's like feeling down, he would know, and he would pick up on that and try to ask her what's wrong and help her out. Now her father frustrates her because he is always at home, but he never talks to them. He just watches the TV, and he also has a bad reputation as being a womanizer. So she assumes that her father's not as faithful as he should be to her mother, but we are never like clear on that. So the quotes I would use to describe him are that just because your father's present doesn't mean he isn't absent. So he's absent in participation, as listed in the statement, and he doesn't stick up for her either whenever her mother's yelling at her. And then there's a scene in the book where she gets caught with a boy, not doing anything bad, just gets caught hanging out with a boy. And then it says, "My father calls me all the names all the kids have called me since I grew breasts." So basically profanity and bad terms. And her father called her that in response to seeing her hang out with a boy. And that drives her crazy. It makes her very angry, and that's like the family dynamic. Like, they're all like mad at each other, but at the same time they do have each other's back. And another scene in the book towards the end, her mother burns her poetry journal, and her father was the one who ended up putting the journal out. The next theme in the novel is expression takes on many forms, as Vito shows the reader that expressing ourselves don't always mean speaking. Each person is different and expressions are subjective. That's what the author is trying to convey. So Xiomara's expression varies from using her fists to writing poetry, and at times, just silence can express how a person feels. Her brother shows his love differently in acts of service, and her mother is making her the proper Christian. That's how they express their love for her. So the quotes I would use to describe expression is, "I know silence well." So when Xiomara doesn't speak, her brother picks up on that and he knows something's wrong. So that's a form of expression. Or if they're sitting in silence, then that expresses how disappointed they are in each other. The next one is sharing space but not words. So again, sometimes there's comfort in just someone's presence and not words, not speaking, and that's an expression. The next one is, "She tells me words give people permission to be their fullest selves, and aren't these the poems?" So her poems also express who she is, how she's feeling, and those are Xiomara's most vulnerable thoughts. The next quote I would use to describe expression is, "Some things don't need words. Some things just need actions." That's a form of expression. And the last quote I would use is, "If you ever touch me again, I'll put my nails through every pimple on your face." Expression takes form in action once again. Um, Actually, this takes form in two ways, by physical violence and through words because she's threatening them. So, yeah. The third and final theme of this novel is it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help. Throughout the novel, Xiomara tried very hard to put on a fake facade at being tough and handles everything on her own, but she actually needed a lot of help. Xiomara got all the help she needed from the people in her life, and it helped her gain confidence, solace, and find herself after trying so hard to gain acceptance in the world and losing herself in the process. Nothing was able to be accomplished without assistance, and it taught Xiomara to become vulnerable and trust that people will have her back, even though she does not realize at first. So the quotes I used for this theme is, "I'm worried about you, Sio. Don't shut us out." And that was said by Caridad, her friend, after she isolated herself from the world and she was going through like a depressive episode. And after that phrase was said to her, Xiomara felt like a lot better. And in the scene, it said that like she didn't say anything, but that silence represented her saying thank you to Caridad for saying this because that's what she needed to hear. Okay, the next three quotes I'm going to read and then I'm going to explain why it ties back into the theme. But the first quote is, "I'm always pretending, pretending I'm blind, pretending I'm fine." The next quote after that is, "I force my skin as thick as I am." And the last quote to support the theme for this is, "Because no one will ever take care of me but me." So this was pre-vulnerability, and it was when she thought that she had to have this tough exterior and she had to do these stuff alone because no one would give her the help that she needed, and to open up would leave her hurting more than if she kept to herself. But then post vulnerability, when she actually asked for help and got the help she needed, it said, there was a quote that she said, "Because I know assistance comes in mysterious ways, and I'm going to need all the help I can get." And that was when she talked to Father Sean so that he can help her speak to her mother. And once she opens up, she gets so much more help and she gets stuff done as opposed to keeping to herself and then staying in her room being depressed. So, through this, you can see as the reader that, as Vito is trying to say, there is no harm in getting help. It's okay to open up because it's so freeing and liberating to be able to speak freely, to talk how you want, to act how you want. And the people in your life who are actually good for you will only help you excel. They will never drag you down and they will never hurt you. So you can be as vulnerable as you like with the people who actually love you. Passage analyzation time. This was taken from page 14 and it says, "It's not one thing that makes me wonder about the capital God, about a holy trinity that doesn't include the mother. It's all the things. Just seems as I got older, I really see the way church treats a girl like me differently. Sometimes it feels all I'm worth is under my skirt and not between my ears. Sometimes I feel that turning the other cheek could get someone like my brother killed. Sometimes I feel my life could be easier if I didn't feel like such a debt to a God that don't really seem to be out here checking for me." So for diction, I said it was casual but poetic, and I liked how she used between my ears instead of saying her brain. And the same with under my skirt, which we all know what it stands for. And I like that she used the word debt because it has such a heavy connotation to it because it gives like burden slash liability vibes instead of saying something like more lighthearted. For the tone, I observed it was very conversational, yet vulnerable and personal. It was like her own speech. Sometimes it didn't sound like grammatically correct, but it sounded very like slang, like as if she was talking to a friend. For characterization, I said Xiomara feels lonely and starts to question her faith while her mother tries desperately to get her to understand it because she's questioning God, she's questioning whether he's listening to her, helping her at all, and that's part of her thought process. I said she also gets sexualized as a girl and for her body, and she's fed up with it because society puts so much emphasis on looks as opposed to intelligence, especially when she's a woman and she's developing. She's getting all these commentaries and she doesn't feel as valued as she should be feeling. And I also said it's a dangerous world and she must protect the people she loves, and she hopes they would do the same for her. As in, oh, if I turn the other cheek, my brother is gonna get like pounced on and stuff like that. So there were several scenes in the book where she had to protect her brother. She had to like call out the bully, and she feels an obligation to protect these people because they can't protect themselves. To connect this passage back to the themes, it presents vulnerability and the importance of family. So I said Xiomara is vulnerable but puts on a tough exterior because if she fails to do so, people will get hurt because the world is cruel, and she just overall has to have faith in God and people around her and trust them to do the right thing and to stand by her. Overall, 4 out of 5 stars, solid book. Highly recommend.